I'm just going to start here because there were three big things the Knicks did. Well, four if you count the OG Anunoby extension, but I think we all expected that. Three big things. So between Mikal Bridges getting traded to the Knicks, Jalen Brunson signing the extension that he did, and Isaiah Hartenstein signing for essentially $30 million annually with a team option, but still. What shocked you the most, or did none of them shock you? I guess I should give you that as an option.
I would say probably the Mikal Bridges trade with New York and Brooklyn. Really not as much Bridges getting traded to New York, but Brooklyn engaging, both sides engaging as far as in a blockbuster type trade, just because we had never. I worked for the Nets for 20 years. I would call over to New York just to check in and see how people. I had friends there who worked in their front office. Jamie Matthews, who still works there, I consider a good friend. I would just call him to check in and see how his kids were doing, right? We would never talk trades or shop or anything like that. I've said it all along, like I never remember even calling over there to offer something, to make a trade proposal back in the 90s or the 2000s, just because, it just wasn't like, we're kind of at two different paths and stuff as far as how teams were building their roster. But that probably shocked me the most, I would say, just because as far as, we all knew what New York had been sitting on as far as from draft pick equity, right, waiting for that next big superstar to become available, which I think a lot of people are still waiting for that to happen. Across the league, there hasn't been one that's been available this offseason, so you could be waiting for a long time. I think certainly that what you read, from Brooklyn all along was that, that Bridges was going to be the guy that they were going to build around. Certainly he had 2 years left. He wasn't going into the last year of his contract. I think certainly when they're able to regain their own draft picks from Houston, that really, listen, I don't think this deal happens without Brooklyn regaining their own draft picks, which was 2025, and then they eliminated the swap in 26, because that kind of gives them a clear path just to bottom, right? Like that gives them a reason why to hit the bottom. And if you're going to hit the bottom, then you might as well move off Mikal Bridges and look to build out more of what your draft equity here. So that would probably be, if Mikal Bridges was on, I don't know, Phoenix, another team, I would be like, oh wow, but I think that one, just because I was eating a dinner by myself in Brooklyn because it was the night before the draft, and it caught me by surprise. I was like, oh boy, so you kind of get a little bit of an inclination here, but I think that for me would certainly be the biggest one.
One thing, I don't want to spend too much time on past stuff because you wrote a wonderful article looking forward to a potential Julius Randle extension. I want to get to that soon, but I do have to ask, because I've wondered it. I've said a couple times, and you just kind of mentioned it, Knicks got tired of waiting. How much do you think they were looking ahead to the fact that swinging the big trade could have potentially gotten more difficult with that many more hoops to jump through because of all the apron stuff? Do you think that factored in here?
Yeah, I think certainly salaries were eventually going to start increasing here. Yeah. I think New York has done a terrific job balancing their books, right? Like as far as how whether they've structured it. You certainly had a Jalen extension looming, right? Whether it be this year or whether they're going to be the full, whatever that 269 number in 2025. OG had not been signed yet. Randall is still kind of we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with Julius here. I think you did see it kind of as a window here to kind of maximize as far as with the apron rules to try to before. I think that what the apron rules do is they allow you, if you're just there, if you're kind of hanging around, whether it be the first or second apron, it gives you the flexibility to do these type of deals. But if you're like Phoenix and you're like 40 million in, right? Like you're in, right? You're done. This is what you are. Kind of Milwaukee and Boston are kind of where New York potentially could have been, I think, hanging around 8 or 9 million over the second apron here. So I think for New York, it would have been very easy just to roll back the group, right? Like it would have been very easy. You lose to Indiana in the second round. You can blame injuries.
Half
certainly
your team's out.
Yeah, I think if you're healthy, I think they would have made it to a conference finals. I don't think they would have probably beaten the version that we saw of Boston. I think that Boston team was really, really good. And I think you're thinking, okay, here's our window. If we're going to go all in, whether it be 4 or 5 first round picks, is it for a guy like Mikal Bridges? Because the beauty of the Bridges contract is it's not like you're acquiring a guy that's making 40 to the $40 to $50 million and everything.
It's not the Towns contract or something like that.
Yeah, because that basically depletes 2 or 3 players that eventually coming out.